everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Janie J. She's the author of the New I Am document, Volume 1, a compilation of spiritual downloads from ascended masters, archangels, which is part of the New I Am movement book series. So she's also a nationally ranked athlete, world traveler, and spirit medium. So, this is my brief introduction to Janie. But the question that I love asking all my guests is who are you in your own words, Janie, as of this moment?
I would say I'm an encourager of women, and I'm also someone that wants to help raise the consciousness of mankind, one soul at a time.
Yes.
I try to live my life using the things I've learned through my life about how to get along with people and how to treat them with kindness and love and be non-judgmental. I try to, I guess you would say, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk, and basically
Mm.
live as is outlined in the new I Am document.
Yes, that's true. There's always something to be aware of, right? Or something to go deeper into. When you
Mhm.
say to raise consciousness, to elevate the vibration, I hear those words all the time here, and I use those words as well. Sometimes, not all the time. So, for those who don't understand what that is that something that you just mentioned after being kind, the sense of peace? How can they understand this in a less abstract way?
Okay. Um, well, when I first heard that, that was my mission. My spirit guides told me that my mission was to help raise the consciousness of mankind. I didn't really know what it meant, but I think I've kind of learned that it means to help mankind have a better understanding about why we're here and the lessons to learn.
Mm.
And in those lessons, you learn about kindness, love, treating people right, and not being judgmental, and leaving all that to God or your higher power. And it truly is a different way of living. And whether you call it raising the consciousness or raising the vibration, because a lot of people
Yeah.
that don't consider themselves spiritual, this wouldn't resonate with them. But if you to explain what the lessons are and how to live, that people get that, at least if they
Mm.
want to live a better life, and if they want to just live in fear and negativity, well, that's their choice.
Yeah.
But it to me, it just means it's a whole different way of living, where you're more accepting of others, you're more accepting of the things that happen, and you basically learn to look for the lesson in everything that happens. Like, even if it's something really bad, like um, you're at your breaking point, um, you need to learn and accept, and you will through trials in your life, like when the really negative thing happens,
Right.
like you might lose your job, your house, or a relationship, and you think, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Life's horrible. Later on, you realize that was a pivoting point for you, and that you went on to something else. Maybe you got a better job or a better relationship, or you moved to another town. And once you start seeing that those things that happen aren't bad, but they are things that the universe uses to redirect you,
Yeah.
and that they really are blessings, um, and that's where you make your change. But then that way, when you're in the midst of it and that terrible thing happens, you can go, okay, what can I learn from this? So instead of being living in fear of, like, going down that rabbit hole of all these things that could go wrong from that point, like how it could get worse, 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 you look at it and you go, okay, what could I learn? What's my part in this? What can I do differently, or how can I shape the outcome? And that's a process, and we all have to go through it.
Yes. Yeah.
It just kind of depends how open you are, and if you really want to make that change, or if you want to be living in fear and doubt and all that the rest of your life.
Right.
It's way better not to. It's way better to go and look at the same situation through different eyes and move on, than to be all worried about it and stuck in the doom and gloom.
Yes. Yes. A billion times to everything that you said. Yeah. That resonates with me in my heart. Yes. I love what you said about being open. Right. That might be the first step, right, Janie?
I think so. You have to be open, or I would actually say the first step is reaching your rock bottom, or whatever you want to call it, a low point in your life where you
Yeah.
go, this isn't working for me. Something's got to change.
Mm.
And then you go, okay, whatever I'm doing isn't working, so I'm open to learning something new. But usually it has to be spurred by some kind of negative thing happening,
Mm.
a not so pleasant thing.
Yes, that said, that is true though. It has been my case too. My own experience going through suffering and then opening up, little by little. It has been a process. So I want to mention your other books. So you have written other 5 books: Live the Life You Have Imagined, Live the Life You Have Imagined, Companion Journal, and Single and 60, Ignite
Mm-hmm.
Your Adventurous Spirit, and then The Unimagined Awakening. So these are
Mm-hmm.
the other books. I guess the question I want to ask you is, how did you, well, I have an idea already, but for the audience, how did you come to be who you are today? Not even who. Sometimes I love the idea of what, just knowing that we are the essence.
Mm-hmm.
But how did you become Janie J as of you expressing yourself now?
Okay. I would say what happened was, when I was 60 years old, I'd been married 35 years. My husband left suddenly.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was working 3 jobs. Um, and I was basically a workaholic, and my husband wasn't working, and he hadn't been for a year. And um, basically, I was having to pick up the slack. And so he wasn't happy, and he just left all of a sudden. And so I was um, desperate and worried. I knew that there wasn't anything else I could do to help him, because I picked up all the slack I could, and
Right.
to make life easier, but he still wasn't coping. And I thought, um, so it sounds mean to say I wasn't worried about him, but knew I did the very best I could. So, like, he needed
Right.
help, and it wasn't going to be through me. But I was terribly, terribly worried about keeping my home, because the backstory is that he had been in the military, and so we'd moved around a lot and never really had a home that I felt right. And now I had built this dream home, and I just loved it. And I didn't want to leave, but I didn't know if I could afford it by myself, because I'd been a military wife, and other jobs where I worked like part time. So I didn't know if I could sustain it. And I was a new real estate broker, so that's commission. So it was kind of scary. So it sounds mean to say I was more worried about
Hmm.
keeping my home, but my home gave me such a sense of peace. Anyway, so maybe hard for people to understand. Now I understand more about it, because I get to be outside, and that's how I grew in my spirituality. So basically, I had
Right.
this breaking point, and I said, I don't care what it takes, but I'm not living the rest of my life like this. Working this hard and never having any fun. It was really difficult to get to go on vacation, and I love traveling to Europe, and I wasn't getting to
Yeah.
do those things. And so I started trying to figure out how I was going to fix my life. And so I started spending time every day meditating, and I didn't even know that that's what it was. And I started, praying and stuff like that, and reading books and listening to podcasts and things, trying to gain information, like how am I going to fix my life. And so one day I was driving, and I just hit me, and it was like a culmination of all that stuff that I'd been swirling around and thinking about and journaling about. It all just like poured out. So I
Yeah.
pulled over to the side of the road and wrote. And it came out to be about 30 things that we need to do to live our best life. And in my quiet time, my spirit guides told me I need to write a book about that. And then they
Mhm.
also told me to write a book called Single and 60, about my personal journey, about starting over at age 60 and trying to run the house and all that by myself.
Mm.
And I live on a little ranchette or farmette or whatever you want to call it. So there's a lot of stuff to do. It's a huge yard and lots of animals now.
Mm.
So I wrote those 2 books. They also told me to write another one called Single Woman's Guide to Happiness, which I wrote, but I haven't edited and published it yet.
Right.
So that's another one on my to-do list. But anyway, but I was totally afraid to tell anybody that I got this download. And that's why I wrote the book. So I just kind of kept under the radar and said, I'm a divorcee, and this is steps you need to take. But then the spirituality grew and grew because I spent so much time alone and journaling, and it started to become like a regular conversation as if somebody's in the room with you,
Mm.
and learned so many things. Um, and then eventually I was told, I was really afraid to tell anybody I could be a medium because I found out that you could talk to anyone or anything, like even animals and stuff, if you're just quiet and you listen and ask questions and you can hear their answers. And
Mm.
so I was kind of afraid to tell people I was a medium. Um, but by writing the books and taking steps, I learned to come out of the closet. But one day in my quiet time, my spirit guide said, "We want you to write this book, and the archangels are going to, dictate it to you, and we're going to start waking you up in the middle of the night." So they started waking me up about 3 o'clock in the morning,
Mm. Mm.
and I'd get up and write, and then I'd go back to sleep, and I really didn't remember much about what I had written. And so in the morning, I'd get up and read it and go, "Wow, this is pretty good." Like,
Yeah.
because at first I was like, "Well, is this really going to work, or am I just crazy?" And then I thought, "Well, I'll just write it and then see what happens."
Yeah.
And so then it just went on until I had transcribed 100 lessons. And then I asked a couple of people about it, like, "Do you know anybody that does this?" And I had heard of Neil Donald Walsh, and I had seen him in person, so I knew that it was possible. And then I heard about other people like Abraham Hicks and stuff like that, and then
Yeah.
it was pretty interesting. And when I got finished with the book, the new I Am document, Volume One, I said, they told me what to call it, and I said, "Why do I call it the new?" And I was kind of curious about that.
Mhm.
So I went and Googled it, and I found out that somebody else, like in the 1930s, the new wrote the I Am discourses, the I Am
Mhm.
discourses. So I figured that's why. And it's like I had never heard of that one.
Right.
So it was like there's something to it. And since then, I've done Volume Two, but it's not published yet. I've got to get that out.
Right.
But it's a lot easier way to write a book. Like when you're just given the information, like I could do that
Yeah.
all day long. It's
Right.
I don't know, people that have to do storylines and all these intricate details. That's kind of involved. I don't know that I'm up for that.
Mm. Yes.
So that's how it came about. And one of the books I wrote, The Unimagined Awakening, is a short book, but it explains how I went from a spiritually starved workaholic to being a spirit meeting, and being able to download that.
Yes.
Because for most people, mainstream people, they go, "How did you change?" Because I mean, people I knew that hadn't seen me for a couple of years, they'd say, like, "Well, what happened to you? You're so different." Because I'm a lot calmer.
Mm.
In fact, my cousins asked me if I was taking drugs or something because they said, "You're so different than you were before."
Yes.
A lot calmer.
Ah, how wonderful. Yeah, it's very familiar to me. I have to say, you see, for some people, this is not a familiar kind of information, knowledge, and even
Hmm.
experience. Although I do think that everyone have these mystical experiences, spiritual experiences, but they don't acknowledge them. They just ignore them. So I wanted to talk to you for a moment about spirit guides.
Hmm.
How did you know that they were guiding you in this direction, or let's say to a loving, peaceful direction? How do we get that confirmation, Janie? What's the best way?
Well, one of the things that I noticed, they kept telling me, like, if I had an interaction with someone and it didn't go well or wasn't happy,
Yeah.
they would they would remind me to look at it something from the other person's point of view. And I hadn't really thought much about that. And in other words, you never know what somebody else is going through. And so they might be lashing out at you, but it might not have anything to do with you. Or they might be afraid of something because of what happened in their past. And it's not really that they're mad at you. So that helped by them keep reminding me to look that there's more to the story. But eventually, I started getting things that I could verify. So, like one thing happened. I'll give an example. So
Yeah.
I was trying to come out to my family, but in kind of a quiet way. So one year at Christmas, I gave everybody an envelope, and in that envelope, I had done what I call a soul connection, or you could call it a conversation with uh, someone that had passed away that was important in their life. And it was just
Yeah.
a short message about what that person said. So, like for my son, I talked to my father who had died. And so this was his grandfather. I gave him a message. And there was somebody in the family that I spoke to their mother. And I'd never had met the mother. And she was from a different ethnic background.
Um,
And she gave me some information, and I wrote it down on the little card for this family member. And then she signed off using whatever, it was a different name. It wasn't mom or mother like we would say in America. And then she also said, and Tootsie. And I'm going, oh my, do I write this down? I don't know what this means.
yeah.
Like they're going to think, now they're really going to think I'm crazy. So what happened? And so I said, I'm just going to do it, like, and just hope they don't shoot the messenger. So I gave it to them at dinner, and I said, don't open it, take it and read it in a quiet time. So these people left, and later that night they called at 10 at night and said, how do you know about Tootsie? And I'm like, I don't know. Who's Tootsie? And they said Tootsie was a neighborhood dog that used to be at their house all the time,
Wow.
and now Tootsie was with them. So it made sense to the receiver. So things like that started happening, and then I'm like, well, I can't make this stuff up.
Yes.
Like this is way more than. And I've learned not to judge or interpret so much what I'm the messages I'm getting. Just write it down like that and tell the people, or put it in the book just the way I hear it, and then they can decipher, the meaning of it.
Right.
But yeah, it was a process, and there was a lot of doubting on my part, and being afraid to tell anyone and afraid to trust it. But eventually I did, and um, it's been good ever since. I mean, it's a one of the things that was really hard for me was struggling with the money thing, because I
Yeah.
grew up being really afraid about not having enough money, and that's why I worked so hard, and to the point of being compulsive about it, and being really cheap about money and stuff. And so I had to learn how to have a different attitude about money, about how it needs to circulate, and uh, and not live in fear, and spend
Right.
money and pay people what they're worth, and that it'll come back to me. And I've had some big
Right.
challenges with money, that in my past years I would have been like, oh my God, I'm never going to make it. But it was
Yeah.
like, well, I owe 100 grand to IRS. We'll figure it out. And I'm like, I don't have the money, so it's not like I just get it out of the bank. But it was weird. Things would
Right.
happen so that I would get the money, and I mean, I don't even remember how it happened. I just remembered, for me, I had to learn how to let go of the outcome.
Right.
And that's also one of the things that we all need to learn, is it doesn't have to be in our control.
Mm.
And it might turn out way better than what we expected or planned.
Mm. Oh my God.
But
Yes.
but it's all a process, and and then
Yeah.
if you forget one of these little lessons, life will give little opportunities for you to relearn them. So it's better to pay
Yes.
attention.
Life is very patient, right? With us, it
Mhm.
keeps coming back, teaching us in a very beautiful way. Yes. Wow. Everything resonates with me, except, of course, the I feel guided to, but I don't have that, let's say, specific books to write or anything that's downloaded that I have to do it. Although what I do has been guided, like this podcast, the
Mhm.
books that I have written too, but not in a different way. So I'm wondering, do you feel like these spirit guides, are they from past lives, or have you actually sensed them in their presence in the room?
Um, well, I usually, when I get quiet and I want to ask them something, then I just ask, and then I can actually tell they're different personalities,
Yeah.
and over the years they've changed. Like it, but it is more than one being, or more than one spirit. At one time I felt like my father was helping me a little bit, and a lady that I used to work with when I was in college, and they've rotated in and out depending on who I needed at which time,
Right.
which is kind of interesting. But they definitely have different personalities, and sometimes they are newer, where they're just learning. And I remember one time being quiet and asking a question. I don't remember what the question was, but what happened was it's like they were standing in a line, and then I
Yeah.
asked this question, and the newest person, and I could tell they were new because they were real small, and they stepped forward and they answered the question, and they gave a good answer, and then they stepped back, and the rest of them were like patting him on the back, like good job.
Yeah.
and and I'm kind of, this sounds strange, but I'm kind of like seeing this in my mind while I'm real
Yeah.
quiet. And so I do think that the spirit guides are going through training just like we're going through learning experiences here on earth.
Mm. Mm.
And I've been told that when I pass away from this life, that I'm going to keep learning and I'll have a job in the afterlife. And so that sounds good to me. I like to keep busy, so that's good.
Yes. So do we all have spirit guides, Janie?
Yes, everybody has spirit guides, and some people might call them your higher self or your
Mm, yeah.
intuition or something like that. I don't think it's so important about what you call it. I just think it is important to draw on it. Now, what they've told me is that everybody has spirit guides assigned to us for our life, and that we need to ask them for help because they're not allowed to help us unless we ask. And
Mm.
if they kind of told it to me this way, so imagine you spend your whole life and you have this one job, and then the people never ask you and you don't get to do it. So if you don't want to ask
Ah,
for yourself, ask for
yeah.
your spirit guides so they can at least feel some fulfillment. And yeah, everybody can do it. I do think you probably need to be calm and be um, your mind clear, which in itself is a huge hurdle for most, at least for Americans, because
Right.
we've got this busy mindset. Um, but if once you learn to be calm and you can listen instead of we're so busy talking, then you can hear it. And then once you do, like you could just get better and better. When I first started talking with my spirit guides, I had to be alone in my room and it was quiet, and I had to be rested, and I did it in the morning, so I wasn't so busy with my day.
Yeah.
But then I
Yeah.
got better at it, and I could do it out in public, like one time I remember I was getting my car serviced, and I did it there at the shop, and that was kind of noisy. And then I learned I could do it in the car when I was driving,
Yes.
because driving's kind of a monotonous thing that we kind of do from memory. And then it's pretty much like you just can do it anytime. So, like when I have events at my house, we'll sit around the table and somebody will tell me who they want to connect with and what they want to ask. And I could just sit there and take a couple of breaths and just say, okay,
Yeah.
he's saying this and he's making a joke and he's saying blah, blah, blah. And it's almost more like I'm connected to that world more than to this one.
Wow.
And I'm just kind of floating around here doing what I have to. But really, in my mind, I'm there all the time. It's not even a division anymore,
Ah, wow.
if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense to me. Yes. Yes, that's when yeah, you have transcended even belief systems. Now you know you are a spiritual being yourself. So it's
Hmm.
not only believe that we are the body. And I think that's where really fear comes from, and the problems we are seeing, within humanity, especially now, I think has to do a lot with that. The belief system that we
Hmm.
are the body mind only, and then we will die,
Right.
and then there's too much fear, protection, barriers.
Well, that was a big thing for me because I'd never heard that before I started my spiritual journey. I'd heard we're all energy. I didn't really know what the hell that meant. And
Yeah.
I heard of your spirit. You have a spirit, but I didn't realize that it's that we're really spirit and this is just a covering.
Mm,
That idea was new to me.
yes.
So I totally get it when people go, well, this can't be, and this is wacko and all that. I mean, if somebody was telling me this, I would be doubtful. But since I lived it, it's like, well, I believe it now. So,
Yes, yes.
and I think people totally underestimate their capabilities, because I think anybody can of course connect with their spirit guides, but anybody can also connect to deceased
Mm,
family members or even famous people, um, or God or whoever they want to talk to. Like, even, I mean, when this last summer I went to Turkey, to Ephesus, and one of the places we stopped was at Mary's house. And when I got done,
mm,
I went and had some of the holy water there, and I started talking to Mary, and she gave me a message right away. So, like, I just got out and wrote down everything she said. So it's not, those sorts of conversations are not reserved for priests or
right.
higher up people. I mean, we can all do it. Even,
Mm,
I would say, even being a spirit medium, any of us can do
yeah.
this. It's like anything else, like riding a bike or learning to type. It just takes practice.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah. What a beautiful message, yeah, for all of us to kind of be open, even if a little bit, right? Just pay
mhm.
attention and be quiet more. As you said, clearing the mind is very important. That might be the one of the first step.
That's a really big hurdle.
Yes.
Oh man, that took a long time for me.
Yeah, it's not easy for most of us. So another something else that caught my attention is that you in your book you talk about life's mission. That you say in early 2019, I was giving my final life's mission. Yes, we really do have one. Love the way you said that. That mission is to transcribe a document that is known as the New I Am document. So that's the book that you have written. So talk to me about life's mission. Is that something that we all are we all aware of this too?
We all have a mission, and I thought my mission was to write those first three books for women, Live Your Best Life, that series.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then I found out, like, if you do it and you do a good job, they'll give you another mission. And so I
Yeah.
said, when they told me this, you have this mission to do, writing this I Am books, I was like, I thought I did my mission.
Yes.
Like, kind of like the kid that says, well, I did all my chores and now you give me a new list.
Yes.
And they said, well, that was just practice, and not to diminish the
Ah.
value of it, but it was to get me ready. And so they told me that I was to do 3 volumes, and that I'm going to live a long time. So that's good, because I'm kind of
Mm.
slow on the execution of getting the books out. Um, because I've got so many that I want to write. But I do think everybody has at least one mission. And I remember before I wrote the first books, I said, well, what was my purpose of being here? Like, what was my
Yeah.
mission? Because it seemed kind of deflating, like it wasn't very big or anything. And they said, well, your mission was to be a helpmate to your husband and help raise the kids. And I'm like, okay, that's nice. But it didn't really fulfill me any. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not trying to offend anybody whose goal in life is motherhood, but I mean, for somebody who's super busy, it was like not that hard of a job. So
Right.
at times, yes, but I mean, in general, um, I because I've worked most of the time, even when I had kids. So, um,
Right.
but I think that you get smaller missions or requirements or whatever you want to call it, and then as you progress, then you can do a higher level mission, or something that, by higher level I mean something that impacts more beings on the planet. And I think,
Yes.
my first books were mostly, they were for women 50 and up, and the books now are for anybody at any age, male or female. So
Right.
I'm happy to do the mission. I
Yes.
I, I hope they don't add too much more, because
Thank you.
I want to have some fun.
Oh my
But,
God. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I know. Sometimes I feel that way too. Like, how, I want
right,
to have some fun. But then I try to have fun here, like within the mission, within the
right,
work.
right,
Like, okay, let me have
right,
some as much fun as I can here. And that's how
right.
I get to enjoy this. So another I mean, I have too many questions here for you. Let's see the next one. Gosh, and then I went through your book. So the book the New I Am document, volume one, it's a series of 100 lessons with insights into why we are here on earth, what we are to learn, and how to live a more peaceful, loving, and intentional life. So I went through the pages that you sent me. The universal truth, one that caught my attention immediately, I think one that I have been guided to fulfill here is kindness. So that when I saw that the greatest gift is kindness, so that immediately resonated. And anything that has to do with kindness, compassion, love, it resonates with me. So talk to me about the difference between being truly kind and pleasing, trying to please.
Right. And I think that's important that you made that distinction. So, if you're a people pleaser, which a lot of women are brought up that way, just
Yeah.
to do whatever and take it on on yourself if it's not happy for you. But being kind means that you don't have to necessarily do what the other person wants, but if you can deliver the news in a kind way. Like,
Mm,
let's say somebody wants you to do a favor for them, and you might say, well, thank you for thinking of me, and I wish I could help you out, but I'm really not going to be able to.
right.
And just let it be that you're sorry, and you can say it in a kind and loving way, but you're not going to do it. That's also called setting boundaries, which is
Mm,
important for our own self fulfillment. That was something new that I had to learn about in my 60s. But you don't have to be mean to people to
right.
be able to explain you don't want to do something or you're unable to. And it's okay. You don't have to do what they say. So those are it. I think it's just a different way of treating people. And um, I know I used to do this. I'd have a knee jerk reaction if let's say somebody said, well, like kids, they always want things. And instead of saying, no, no, you
Mm,
can't have that, maybe just pause and then think about how you're going to deliver that same message, but in a kinder and a nicer way. Well, I realize you really do want that toy, but we're not going to get it today, or maybe you can get it for your birthday or Christmas or something. So it's not a hard no. It's a,
yes.
gee, I'm sorry, but the answer's no. There's many things like that that if we would all just stop and pause for a moment and think about things from the other person's point of view or how to deliver news nicer, it would really change, because a lot of people get in arguments over simple stuff like that. If the news was just delivered in a better way, it
Yeah.
it would go a long way towards keeping the good feelings between people.
Yes. Yes, Janie. Yeah. Beautifully said. Yes, it resonates with me. Being truthful but kind. Yes, that's one of my biggest practices. Another question I have for you. Yes, healing. Do you connect healing to spirituality?
Yes, yes, and I think the human body is capable of way, way, way more than most people
Yeah.
think. Um, and I think that we can heal ourselves. And I think that when people are sick, it's I don't mean to be blaming, but a lot of it's self-induced, and if not,
Mm,
or maybe also it's a lesson to us to that we do have control over our body, because the human body is miraculous. I mean, you think about it, when you get a cut, it heals itself, and there's more to it on the inside like that we're just not aware of. um, but we need to be respectful of our bodies and do the part we can, what we know how to do about eating correctly, and movement and sleep and all that kind of stuff, and meditation. um,
oh, yeah.
and I do
Yes.
think we can heal ourselves there. I think that big pharma or the medical industry doesn't want people to know that we can do this. More and more people are doing self healings or seeking alternative things, but the thing is, it doesn't work for everybody because they're not open to it. Like people's like if you notice, when people get cancer and they go around and they tell everybody they got cancer, woe's me, what am I going to do, worry, 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 everybody they tell gives more negative energy to that. Oh, they're going to die.
Mm,
Oh, it's chemo's going to be
mhm.
horrible. And but I've there's been cases where other people will say, I'm not going to accept that, and I'm going to this one lady I heard about, she decided to like watch. comedies and be around happy, uplifting people. And then she went back to the doctor, and they did the X-rays, and they say it's gone, and we don't know how you did that.
Right. Yeah.
But it had a lot
Yeah.
to do with mindset and what you're around and what you're exposed to.
Mm.
So when I hear about somebody that's sick, I try to think about them in a loving way and not a worrisome way, because I don't think that people need any more negative
Mm.
energy about that. But there is a lot we can do, and I've seen instances of it. So
Mm. Oh my God, I love that. I love everything you say. It sounds like a song to me, an angel song to me.
good. Well, it's because everybody already knows all this, but we've just forgotten it. But if you're
Yes.
open, then it'll be like it percolates and it comes to the top, and then you start realizing, oh yeah, that does resonate.
Yeah, I love that. You just said something that that's a powerful message. We don't need more negative energies, heavy energies. So why not kind of embrace keep that in mind as a responsibility of ours to just pass that on, kind of learn how to treat
Hmm.
ourselves with kindness and then pass that on to others. And speaking of self kindness, how do you define self love? What is your message about loving ourselves?
Well, I think it's important that we all learn to accept ourselves the way we are, because we do not have to be perfect.
Yeah.
God doesn't require us to be perfect. God only requires that we do our best. And I
Mm,
tell you what,
yeah.
when I found that out, that was a big load off of my mind,
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
was always like, "Oh, you got to be try harder, and you got to
Yeah.
do better." But once you know that, and you know in your soul that you've done your best, then there's a sense of completeness, or you're just feel happy about it.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you don't want to try harder. It just means you're not going to beat yourself up. So I think we all need to learn to get to that place. And we all know we have our own idiosyncrasies about the way we do things and stuff. And we need to be more accepting of that.
Right.
Just and like speak kindly to ourselves, because we subconsciously listen to our thoughts, and we become what we tell ourselves. So if we tell ourselves, well, you're never going to amount to anything, you're always going to be fat, you're never going to be pretty, and we start believing that, and we will subconsciously take actions to feed into that. But if we
Mm.
tell ourselves, hey, I actually did this when I was running track to be a nationally ranked athlete. We are the team. We started telling ourselves, we are senior athletes. We train, and we don't drink. We don't stay out late. We eat healthy. We do all our workouts, and we push and all this stuff, and we eat properly to do our best. And I mean, my gosh, we just grew right into it. And I think it's like that in other areas in your life. I mean, to explain how profound that is, what you tell yourself.
Mm.
When I was divorced, I was 35 pounds overweight. So I had to lose weight. And then I joined a fitness group, and we started walking, and then we started jogging. So I was only running for 2 years before I went to the national senior games. So I got in the top. I placed in the top 10 in 2 track events,
Yeah.
and I was 65 years old. Now I'm not doing that anymore, because there's more to life than running track. But
Right.
to show that, just it proved to myself that I could do it. I could become that runner, and I thought that was pretty amazing, because most of the people that were at that event, had been running since high school or college or something like that. And I'd only been, I mean, I literally went from walking to running on track in 2 years,
Amazing.
and gotten the top 10 in 2 events. And it was really hard.
Yes.
But you can do anything if you start telling your mind, oh, I can do that, oh, I could do that. And you don't have to make a really huge goal. Like, it doesn't have to be when. It could be that I'm going to train for it, or that I'm going to treat myself as if I already am that person. And you
Mm.
can do that for any kind of goal that you have. Like, if you just want to get in shape, or you want to read books or write books, or move up in your career. I mean, you just start telling yourself that you are like that, and your mind listens to it, and then makes everything fit it. So the next time you, like, say if you want to be an athlete like that, then when somebody offers you a piece of cake and you go, no, I really don't want any, then you really don't want any. It's like that.
Yes. Wow, that's another beautiful message for all of us, right? To believe in ourselves and it change, right? The perspective, the self-talk. They call in psychology, I think they call it self-talk or the critic, the inner critic, and all that. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, what happens is we all have that tape that we run in our mind
Yeah.
about what we like. Well, you can't do that because this, or you'll never amount to anything because of that. So you have to, like, consciously take that tape, rewind it, write a new tape, and then just do that over and over until it becomes
Mm,
automatic, and then you don't think about it, and then that's how you can kind of up level your life by feeding your brain different information. It'll pick up on that.
yes. It's like the body, right? Feeding the
Hmm.
body with the healthy foods. So we see the difference.
Right.
It's just so fast too. So under the universal truth, you also have be grateful always. That's something that resonated with me immediately. Also, being nature heals you. You said that. That's another phrase, another message that resonated. And then your happiness is your responsibility. The strongest power in the universe is love. Of course, I had to have that here. Listen to your heart. That's another one. So, oh, I just have the ones that it caught my attention. And then, gosh, lesson one, two, three, four, and five. So, lesson one, the purpose. And then there you say, all mankind is one, one with each other and one with God. So this, as you said, is the most important lesson we are here to learn, that we are all interconnected. It's one essence. So this is also an interesting. Let's say for me, it's not a concept. It's very real, and that's how I see everything. But I know that for most people, it sounds very abstract to say. And
Hmm.
even I remember, interviewing people here, and they would say, I know you have heard so much of the cliche about being one and all that, but we're all different, different bodies, different minds. So, talk to me about that from your perspective,
Well,
Janie.
that was something I'd never heard of, and so I
Yeah.
thought it was kind of wacko. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, honestly, I always thought, well, this is me, and this is the end of me. But
Right.
then you start realizing that, let's say you're in a relationship with a partner, and you yell at them, and then they yell at you. So that had your affect what you do affects them.
Yeah.
Or let's say you hit a car when you're driving, and so what you've done affects them, and they may or may not be injured, but they might be angry. And so in very subtle ways you can start seeing how it is true that our actions do affect other people.
Right.
And it could be something good too. So like if you're setting a good example to somebody, like parent to child, and then the child picks up on it, then you do have influence over them.
Mm,
But it is a pretty hard concept to overcome. So what I would tell people is, don't focus on the part you don't understand when you read that book. Just keep reading it, and as you read the lessons, you will start to see how it all melds together.
right.
And it doesn't just mean that we as humans are all connected. It also means we're connected to the environment, the animals, and everything. And if you think about how the climate affects others, or how animals, whatever they do, affects us, or how what we
Right.
do affects the fish in the stream and stuff, then you start seeing it. But if there's some part of the book that maybe doesn't click right away, I would say keep reading, because the 100 lessons, there is absolutely no doubt that if everybody lived in accordance with those lessons, the world would be a totally different place, and
Mm,
everything would work a lot better. And the
yes.
second volume, it's a lot of the same messages, but it's like an onion. It's a little bit deeper in explaining how this stuff works.
Right.
And the lessons, I mean, people might be scared and think, oh no, it's going to be some boring lesson like when you go to church and the pastor has to
Yeah.
explain the
Yeah.
Bible to you. It's not
Yeah.
like that. It's more like a fifth grader can understand this. And you could read it as a family. You
Right.
could read it to your kids. You could read it with your partner. You could read it with your friends and discuss it. And you would gain a lot of awareness, and everybody would come out being kinder and more loving towards each other, because they're not hard lessons. It's not anything about you have to suffer or you're going to go to hell. It's nothing like that. It's very simple lessons.
Yes. Yes. I love that too because yeah, for me, I usually look for things that will resonate with me. And that's what I take from anything I read or any conversation. Of course, I'm open, so I love being challenged also for some things that perhaps I'm close to, whatever it is. So I keep my heart open, my mind open. But of course, most of the lessons that I see here in your book, the ones that I was exposed to, resonated with me. The idea of God is a little bit different. Perhaps I don't feel God is separate from me or anyone. God is,
Mm.
when we talk about one, is that's what to me that's the truth is the essence is one. So God is
Mhm.
it's what's holding all this together.
It's a journey of understanding. So you start with them being separate, and then you realize
Yes.
that we're all one, and then you realize that we're all in this together, and then you realize that we are God.
Mm.
So even that's another level of understanding.
No, there's something that you said that really caught my attention about. Yes, I don't know if hopefully I remember by heart, but in a book you mentioned that we are going into a different, let's say, reality, kind of ascending.
Hmm.
Perhaps the earth will no longer exist, so another will be beings in a different universe, in a different place.
That was pretty freaky for me to write that.
Yeah, what that makes sense to me. A lot of people listened and watch these videos, these interviews. So they are listening for a reason. So talk to me about how would that happen? Because we don't want to see people, humans, losing the body in a way that, in a fearful way, because we carry that energetically.
Hmm.
So how would that be? How could this end? I mean, I can only think in a way of everyone becoming enlightened, in a sense of knowing that they are God.
Well, I do think that's kind of the goal, is to get everyone enlightened, and then we can
Yeah,
all ascend from this reality as one. Because they told me over and over, we're not going to leave anybody behind. And it
right,
might take a long time to get everybody on board, but they will all ascend as one, and then we won't be here. We will go to some other place, and the sense I get is that we may or may not look the same, because think about it, if we go to another planet, we may have to have different types of bodies with different functions and look different to
yeah,
be able to live on some other planet.
right,
Um, yeah, I don't think we should, that worrying about that falls in that category of worrying about something in the future, and worry is just a waste of time. But I do think we should be aware of it in the part about trying to get everyone to ascend, because that just makes our life here
yes,
better. Because if you hang around, if you have to do interactions with people that don't have any kindness, that are stuck on their ego, and that are mean and judgmental, I mean, it just makes that part of your life kind of crappy. So I
right,
try to avoid those kind of people. Um, and then the ones that are kind of in between, maybe try to be a good example to them so they can be enlightened. But you can't really go to somebody that's so far off the spectrum and lift them up. So you just do what you can. And I want to hang around people that at least have an open heart and an open mind,
mm,
and try
mm,
to lift them up to the next level. But I don't, I think worrying is a waste of time, to worry about what's going to happen later. But some of the things we need to keep in mind is that we do need to take better care of the environment, or those times are going to come sooner rather than later.
yes,
Because we do a lot of things we do are not the proper way to take care of the environment or animals, so, and each other.
yes, yes. That's a beautiful message. Yeah, I love those. I mean, everything you say. Yes, not worrying. I love having conversations, so I don't really worry about the future or anything like that. But I love the idea of having just exploring, investigating some of the
Hmm.
possibilities of what could happen, and it's fun to me. I guess
Yeah.
without the worry attached to it, it's fun.
Hmm.
So you mentioned we talked briefly about trust before. So about spirit guides and how important it is to surrender and just listen to them and be guided.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of the trust piece. You see, I keep going back to the idea of being able to have less fear. I mean, when it comes to fear, I don't think love and fear can coexist. I really don't think they can. And even being present, you can't really be present if you're fearful. So, how do you see this transition from fear based, this reality that most people live in, sadly, to love and trust? And how do you see this happening? It's already happening, or do we need to do more?
It's a transition from the fear to the trust and then to the love. And
Yeah,
you you really need to be aware that you're fearful, and there's different ways you can do it. I've seen different people online, and um, they'll they'll say things like say somebody has a statement and they say I'm afraid of blah blah
yeah,
blah, and they say,
yeah,
well, do you know that that's going to happen for sure? Well, no. Well, are you sure that you have the right uh, um, situation? Maybe you haven't described it properly. And then
right,
you basically break down the fear to that it's kind of your imagination or what you think might happen. And when you realize that it's not fact based, then
right,
you can start to let it go. Um, like let's say one about money.
yeah,
Well, I'm worried I won't have enough money. Well, you might not have. That's true. You might not have any money right now, but you do you have more money coming? Well, yeah. Well, then that's not true that you don't have any money. And is it possible that there could be money coming from some other source that you're not aware of, like a tax
mm,
return or an inheritance or something? Well, yeah, I guess that could happen. So you know that you shouldn't be afraid of money. Now that doesn't mean you're going to go out and be a spend a bunch of money, but you can quit living in fear. And then you need to uh, be grateful for what you have so that
yeah,
you're not so worried about that you have to have these things that money can buy. Instead you can be grateful you have a house, you have enough to eat, you have loved ones, you have a pet, or
yeah,
whatever your
yeah,
things are. And it's a process. And then you might trust a little bit and think, well, okay, I'm going to trust that this is all going to work out. And then you might have a time again where you're fearful and you trust a little more for a bigger something, a bigger value or bigger concern. And it's just a process where you keep doing it. um, a simple example to give people, I used to be really, and I think there's lots of people like this, I used to be really upset, like especially if I had an appointment and I was going to be late, and I would be so fearful, and I'd be like,
yeah,
okay, I don't have enough time to get there, I'm going to be 2 minutes late. And then I think, oh my gosh. So then when I was in real estate, so then they probably won't make a deal with me. And then I won't make any money. And then I'll be homeless. And
yeah,
you see how it gets worse and worse. And so when I finally said, okay, I'm doing the best I could, I had to do something before I left the house. I'm going to be 2 minutes late. So what could happen? Well, the tenant might talk to the, whoever it was that was going to meet there, the real estate guy, another real estate guy,
yeah,
and maybe they can have some camaraderie or they can show them around before I get there. And then maybe I won't really be late because traffic will be smoother. Or,
mm,
maybe there's some other reason that I'm going to be late and it'll work out for the best. And oh my gosh, it started happening. And so then I was like, okay, then I'm just not going to worry about it. I mean, I still will try my best to leave so I could get there on time, but
yeah,
not worry about the outcome and not taking this little teeny mountain and making it huge because I'm worried, worried, worried. Just and I mean, I had days where, and everybody's had this happen, where you had a schedule, like you had certain appointments, and then somebody canceled, and then you're like, dang, oh, my whole day's messed up now.
yeah,
But then what really happens is you go do something else instead, and that turns out better than what you had planned. And if you approach it with that kind of mentality, like instead of being afraid, well, now I'm never going to get XYZ done. Well, you end up doing something that ends up helping you more
Yes.
or being a better benefit. So we need to embrace change and not be afraid of it, because a lot of things that we're afraid of are never going to happen.
Yes. Yes. Beautifully said, clearly said. Yeah. Especially um, letting go of the outcome, the expectations. That's a big one for most people. Doing things and just holding on to what could happen. It has to happen my way. And then when it doesn't happen, they become so disappointed and then more fear sets
Hmm.
in. But I do see that one of the, I don't know if that's the main fear, but I see that people are afraid of one another. I've seen that too when, especially different countries, when we kind of are faced with people who look different or they speak a different language or they
Hmm.
just come across as some people that we cannot understand.
Right. And the reason is because we're out of our comfort zone. It's just something we're not aware of.
Right.
And honestly, that is one of the greatest things I found out from traveling. And I encourage people to travel all over, not just to try out the food and see the sights, but to get to know
Right.
the people and the culture,
Right.
because there's more than one way to do life. And some cultures got some pretty good ways. And I can think of one right off is Spain, where they take a siesta every afternoon. And,
Right.
you know, Italians really love to eat and drink their wine and stuff like that and cook. So there's a lot to
Mm,
be learned from all different nationalities. But some people are so fixated on that they're afraid to travel because something might go
yeah.
wrong. Well,
Right.
something might go right too. You might meet some new people. You might learn some new ways, and it travel gives you that sense of that you can go outside your comfort zone and maybe learn something that you want to adapt to your life.
Right.
But there's more than one way to do stuff, and you also learn what's important to other cultures, and you might learn more about why they do certain things, and it's not that it's good or bad, it's just different.
Right. Ah.
And people the more if people would travel more, they would sense that we are all one a lot sooner, because it makes you realize that everybody wants the same things, and we all want to learn how to uh, be happy, take care of our families, have some fulfillment in work, and we still want to have fun. But yeah, there's a lot of fear about other cultures. And
Yes.
it's kind of one thing that's I think has helped is more marriages where they marry people of different cultures,
Yeah.
because it's one thing to say, oh, well, I don't want any of those people. But then when your kids marry one of those people, it's right in your face and you have to learn it.
Mm,
And so I think in that way,
mm,
it's good. That's because people get exposed a little bit at a little bit. But if you want to fast forward that sense of security and feeling comfortable with other cultures, then the best thing to do is travel, so you can go around and experience life, through somebody else's eyes.
Thank you so much, Janie. We're almost at the end, and I want to thank you for your presence in this reality. It's just so beautiful. You're so genuine too, so present, genuine,
Thank
calm
you.
with your own energies, loving energies, wise energy, and I really thank you for being open to life and letting all that just flow, through you and pass that on to us. Thank you. So before we say goodbye for today, I want to mention your websites. The new IamMovement.com is one of them, and then JanieJ.net, and then the YouTube channel as well, Janie J Soul Connector. I'll have the links on the
Hmm.
podcast notes too.
Oh, great.
So did I
Thank
miss
you.
anything?
Yes, yes, I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook.
So LinkedIn, Facebook as well.
It's under Janie Jerkovich. It's
Oh yes,
Jurkovich.
I do have here. So I'll have those links as well. Thank you so much again. And I guess my last question to you is you have so many amazing messages that I almost don't want to ask this question. But if there is one message you wish everyone to take with them to their heart and minds for 2024, what would that be?
I would say I want everyone to know that we are all truly connected and we are all one. But first, you need to believe that we're all truly connected.
Mm,
Because once you start seeing life through that lens,
yeah.
it really changes your perspective.
Mm,
And I think if you think that way, you will act that way. And then the consciousness of humanity will rise as a result.
yes.
And you'll be happier.
Beautiful. That's for sure. Thank you so much again, Janie, for being
Oh, you're
you.
welcome.
Thank you. And we'll talk soon. Bye for now.